Hello and welcome to Footnotes, the Cicerone podcast, a podcast to inspire you about outdoor travel and activities in the UK and across the world. I'm Hannah, and thanks for joining us for our latest fortnightly episode. In this episode, I'm talking to Jasmin Taylor, one of the top Telemark skiers in the world. Hi, Jazz.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I understand you're quite a busy lady.
Yeah, this time of year I do tend to be. Summer's a bit more quiet, but yeah, it's all ramping up again now.
So just give us a little intro into who you are and what you do.
My name is Jasmin Taylor. I mean, most people call me Jazz. I compete for Great Britain in Telemark Skiing, and I follow the World Cup circuit each winter. It's pretty much me.
What is Telemark Skiing?
So Telemark Skiing is a discipline of skiing where you have a free heel. So rather than the normal alpine technique where you have a fixed heel and you kind of have a squat position side to side when turning, with Telemark you actually create a lunge position. So the free heel allows you to lift the back leg or the inside foot of the inside ski. And you like more lunge from side to side than squat. So I guess that's the main difference.
So what difference does it make in terms of how fast you go or where you can ski and stuff like that?
In racing terms, a Telemark racer would be slower than an alpine skier comparatively in the same discipline, just because we can't put the same force through the ski. But we have a greater range of movement and probably a few extra challenges when it comes to balance. I like to think it looks really fluid and graceful, and it's really fun to do it as well. So yeah, if you're like looking for a new challenge on skis, it's perfect.
I think standing up on skis is a challenge enough for me, to be honest. We'll come back to how people can maybe give it a go and get involved. But how did you get into Telemark skiing? Because it's not a thing that is really maybe popular in the UK.
No, it's not. It's not that well known even worldwide. It's a small sport. But I was competing in alpine racing. So as a teenager, I was lucky enough to go away to a ski academy, the British Ski Academy, and do some training with those guys. And when I was there, we'd try other disciplines of skiing like cross-country skiing, ski cross, ski jumping. Yeah, there's one occasion we tried Telemark with this crazy French guy who now happens to be the British team coach. So it's been a fun journey between then and now. But yeah, it all started just on a whim, really.
So were you always pretty outdoorsy?
Yeah, as a kid I liked being on my bike and climbing trees, and I always had just as many guy friends as I did girlfriends, and just always enjoyed being in the garden and that kind of thing. So I'd say so, yeah, probably.
So you went away on a trip and you tried Telemark and you just fell in love with it, I guess. And then what happened?
Then this Frenchman that I just mentioned, his name is Sebastian Taylor. So Seb sort of scooped me up and said, Jazz, come and do some training and come and do some racing. And I said, yeah, okay, that sounds great. And just went and did some French races and did a lot better than I kind of anticipated. And I thought, oh, right, okay, maybe this is a viable option for me, and kind of dedicated myself to it full time. I always had it in mind that I'd love to be the best, and I always wanted to be a full-time skier. So it just seemed to fit, and it came along at the right time and the right person, the right place as well, and everything just fell into place. So yeah, this skiing career just took off, really.
I mean, so many people must dream of doing that, and then just from trying it to being invited to do some races, realizing that actually you're pretty good at it, and then being selected to race for GB. How did all that happen?
It was it was a bit like one door led to the next, and I just felt like I was following the road, if you know what I mean. I knew I loved it, and with skiing, when you do alpine skiing, there are many skills that transfer across. And I'm also quite small in stature. I'm about 160 centimeters, and I'm not a large person. And in telemark, it's potentially an advantage. I kind of thought at the time, having a lower center of gravity with balance, that sort of thing. That's not necessarily the case, by the way, but it was just my way of thinking. And I thought, yeah, do you know, I really feel like I can maybe do this. And yeah, I just went for it.
So was it a pretty fast rise to the top?
I would say I possibly showed some signs of potential, but I wouldn't have said that it was a fast rise to the top as such. It was more, I would have a good result and then I wouldn't be able to repeat it because I wouldn't necessarily understand why I'd done well. So it's difficult to explain on a podcast. You can obviously see me on a camera, but it wasn't a steady rise. It was more up and down, with a gradual trend upwards, probably.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The idea that you'd be naturally quite good at something, but not have the awareness of what you were doing that was the quite good bit. That's a really interesting idea of having to learn how to analyze your own movement and figuring out the really good bit. And did the French guy, was he coaching you through that then?
Yeah, so he's always been my coach, Seb, and he was coaching the French team at the time, and now he coaches us lot, the British, which we're very lucky to have him. But I think actually I don't know whether it's probably not a good idea to generalise, but I'm going to do it anyway. With British skiers, we like to understand why and know why do you have your foot in this position? Why does your hand need to be there? And the French come at it slightly differently. They don't need to understand everything, probably because they've grown up on the slopes and things just come very naturally. But I'm very very British in that sense, that I like to understand everything I'm doing and control it, and so I can replicate it and that kind of thing. And Seb kind of has this ethos that it's like, you got to let it go. You can only control things up to a certain point, and then it's instinct, it's feeling based, it's all these things that you can't neatly tuck into a box. So when you're trying to reassure yourself on a start line, and you kind of just have to say, oh, well, let's just see what happens. It's quite difficult to get to that place, and you have to have a real sense of confidence behind you, which I obviously had much less of in the beginning. So yeah, it can be challenging on many levels. Sport, it's not just physical, it's all the things.
Yeah, I wonder how many people can relate to that, because I was nodding along then, thinking back to when I was learning kayaking, and it was a similar sort of thing. It was just like, oh, just go with the boat and feel the water and lean into where you feel like you need to, and all of that. And I wanted to kind of understand it, and I wanted to tackle it like almost like in an academic way to understand what was going on. And I really struggled to just relax and go with it. And as soon as I ever did just relax and go with it, it was so much better. But I had this sort of battle in me of, the way I learn how to do something is I get a book and I study a book. Yeah, I don't know whether that's like the UK.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know whether it's like the education system here sort of teaches you that this is how you learn, or anyway, it's a bit of an aside, but I just thought that's quite interesting to hear you as a professional skier go through some of that as well.
Well, I also am a ski instructor and a ski coach, so I've done work in those roles as well, and it really does show when you have a British client and when you have a French client. And I was even lucky enough to spend the summer in Australia coaching and instructing this, well, their winter but our summer. And even the Australians they don't question everything like I find that British clients do. And I mean, not everybody, but just as a general rule, we really like to know where we are and know why something worked and why something didn't. And you can up to a point, but that last little part of the performance. It's like catching air. You have to feel that, and it has to be, that's the human part. And there's something vulnerable in it that perhaps is the part I find the most difficult to.
And the most rewarding as well, when you get it
Yeah.
right and you can't quite put your finger on why.
Yeah, there's always that element of how, you know. And it's the magic you just can't put your finger on. But it's, I think, also the part that keeps you coming back, and it's kind of addictive. Probably you get it with a round of golf or kayaking, like you were saying, even trail running. I don't know. There's a certain flow you hit, and you don't know how you did it. You can never fully control it. It's it's tricky.
Yeah, I do love it when you feel like you get to a point where you're kind of at one with the world and everything feels like it's moving really smoothly and fluidly together. And you're like, oh, that's, I've just got that half a second or whatever feeling like everything was in perfect synchronization. I mean, usually that literally lasts half a second with me, and then I remember that I'm dying or I'm trying not to need a wee or whatever is going on. But
the basic needs.
I am not a professional athlete for a million reasons. So what's it like competing for Team GB?
Well, it's I mean, obviously I'm lucky enough to do something that I truly love and I'm totally passionate about for many reasons. And I suppose all my goals are connected to the sport, or at least all my career goals are in some way. Like I would like to perform as an athlete, I'd like the British to do well, and I'd like the sport to do well. So it's, I've actually forgotten your question because I got so into what I was talking about.
I was just wondering what it's like to be a Team GB athlete.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, that's okay. I did answer the question. Yeah, I mean, I love it, and I love that it gives me the opportunity to do what I love.
This podcast is created by Cicerone Press, a specialist publisher of nearly 400 guidebooks to walking, cycling, trekking, and generally having fun outdoors. You can find our full range of guidebooks online at cicerone.co.uk or ask about us in your local bookshop. Our website is also a hub of all sorts of interesting stuff, including our regular newsletter, free sample routes, articles, and videos. Thanks for listening. The Lionesses did so well recently, and the conversations about women in sport. I am not a fan of football at all, and I watched, I don't even know, like the final game. I can't even remember if they won overall. This is terrible. I probably should have checked. But anyway, I think they did win overall. And I watched that game and I wasn't paying much attention because I'm not really interested in football. But I think the commentary afterwards about how difficult it used to be to become a professional female athlete compared with now, hopefully this is going to change some of the access to sports for women and help more women become professional athletes. I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, having been involved in Telemark for a few years at least.
Yeah, well, if it has a positive impact, that's obviously brilliant. And money is, kind of a dirty word. We don't talk about money. We don't discuss how much we earn, or, that it's kind of taboo. You don't talk about it, do you? And as an athlete, especially a female athlete, I think, maybe I'm wrong in saying especially a female athlete, but that's kind of my feeling. It's difficult. It's difficult sometimes to be taken seriously. It's difficult to get yourself out there and build a platform. And if those things are difficult, then it's also difficult to generate the funds that you need in order to compete or represent your country. If you're an athlete, it's hard going. It's not an easy thing to do. You put a lot of pressure on yourself. You're often working very physically hard. You have a tough competition schedule and traveling, all the training, all the people that you have to deal with around that. So to then have to try and generate the funds as well on top of that, it's a huge stress, and it's not a nice thing to to have to rely too heavily on any one person financially or in any way. As adults, I think most of us do want to feel quite independent, but if you feel that you either have your independence or it's your sport and you love it, that's a tough position. So anything like the Women's World Cup, the football, anything that promotes sport in a positive light in general, and even for the guys as well, skiing is tricky for everybody. It's not really gender specific, but I would have said in football, it's more tricky for women to be paid correctly compared to the men.
I think that's what's so shocking, isn't it? Is that everybody knows the male footballers, and they're these celebrities, and they're paid an awful lot of money, and they are kind of looked after as athletes. And then the difference in how the women are treated as footballers is so stark because of how the men are treated. I don't know whether it's the same in Telemark, because Telemark is such a smaller sport anyway. I don't know whether there will be that difference between the male and the female. Like you said, I suppose anything that promotes your sport and sport overall in a positive light, for anyone, male or female, or anyone who's got barriers to getting involved, I guess is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Telemark's pretty equal in terms of gender, and it's just in general the sport needs as much support as it can get. So hence why I'm very grateful always to my sponsors and supporters, because you do rely on that to keep doing what you're doing. So yeah, like the likes of My Sports, for instance, and all these other companies that get on board and help you out, big or small, it does go a long way.
Yeah. We will put a link to Maya Sports in our show notes as well, so people can check them out, because I'm a massive, massive fan of what they do. Do you want to just give a quick shout out to them?
Well, yeah, just a huge thank you to My Sports just for supporting GB Telemark. The best outdoor clothing I can think of. So easy to ski in it just because it moves so well. Waterproof, great quality, and looks great, I think. So yeah, I'm really happy that we have such an awesome company on board.
Yeah, from a personal perspective, what I think is really nice is that all the qualities you describe in the clothing, it's available in loads of inclusive sizes. So actually, although you were describing yourself as quite a small person, I have, especially since COVID, become a much larger person. And but I can still get Maya Sports clothes that fit me really, really comfortably. And I had Maya Sports kit that I took to Nepal for trekking, and I was really comfortable and felt just as legitimately outdoorsy as other people, because I wasn't having to wear really cheap, nasty clothing just because I wasn't the size that you can get in most outdoor shops. So yeah, I appreciate them too. Anyway,
Yeah.
end of sermon on Maya Sports.
Yeah, for sure. Check them out.
Yeah, check them out. So what events have you got coming up? What does the calendar look like for a Telemark skier?
Well, so our first event is a FIS race. That's at the beginning of December in Austria, so in Hintertax. And then we have the first World Cup, so the 6th of January is kickoff in Les Contamines in France. So it's going to be a busy winter, especially January and March. And we have a World Championship year, which will be in Mürren, Switzerland, in March. So yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be, full on, like I said.
So what actual events do you compete in?
In Telemark, you have 3 disciplines, but a Telemark race actually comprises of 4 different events, or not events, sorry, but elements, if you like. So you'd have a giant slalom. So here you actually need to navigate the red and the blue flags, but with the Telemark technique. And if you lose the technique or the position, or if your position's not big enough, you'll incur 1 second penalty per turn. So it's about being quick, but it's also judged. So you need to be fast, but have technical accuracy at the same time. The second element is the jump. So the jump's built like a ski jumping jump. So if you don't jump, you won't fly. But the idea is that you have to make this active move to jump, and then hopefully, if you've jumped well enough, clear the distance line. And if you clear the distance line, there's no time added again. But if you don't clear the line, you get 3 seconds added to your time. And if you don't land telemark, you get a further second added. So the jump's pretty much just as important as the giant slalom skiing section. This third element is a loom, so a giant bank turn where competitors have to cross their own path. So it's a kind of loop-de-loop, if you like, and you have to cross the path you've already skied. And that then leads you into the fourth element, which is a skate section. So again, skating is super important in telemark racing, and it can win you or lose you a race. So the idea is that the skiing, the jumping and the skating are kind of equal weight in the event, and that the best is the one who has the average best across those 3 elements. So yeah, that's just to give you a base that in telemark racing, it comes from the ancient history of how people would use telemark technique to walk up, ski down, skate, jump. It was kind of the all mountain way of navigating the mountains back in the day. But it's the modern reinvention of that with the racing. So yeah, just to give you a bit of history. But we have 3 disciplines as well within that. So a sprint, which is 2 runs. They're both time trials and added together. That's about a minute in duration. Then you have a classic, which is 1 long run. That can be 2-3 minutes in duration. Again, it's a time trial. And then the third event is a parallel sprint. So it's a head-to-head knockout. The run is normally about 40 seconds total. And first we have qualification, and then it would be, say, 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, and so on until you have an eventual first, second, third, fourth, and so on. So
I don't know why I'm surprised that it's really competitive. It's like we're talking about the world's greatest telemark skiers here. I don't know why I'm like gasping that, oh, that sounds really brutal.
it can be brutal, but it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and you kind of have to see it to believe it. It's kind of bonkers.
So you must have to be, like, you hinted at it then, but you have to be quite a broadly talented skier to be able to do this.
Yeah, that's probably a fair comment. But I would say like it's kind of like the triathlon of skiing, because you have to be good enough at jumping, good enough at skating, good enough at skiing. We won't jump as well as ski jumpers. We won't skate as well as cross-country sprint skiers, but we've had to adapt it to our equipment and our environment. So it's impressive. It's impressive when you watch it and you see somebody clear a 30-meter jump and then land on edge in telemark and carve the next turn with their hip on the snow kind of thing. You're like, wow, that is insane. Like, honestly, it blows my mind. And I still watch the competitors of mine and the men as well, and I just think, wow, it's impressive. I still get imposter syndrome even now after 10 years or more of doing it. So,
which, you know, it's really lovely, and I hope it comes out on the audio. But like, your face just lights up when you're talking about it, and it's so clear that you are super passionate about this, because you're just grinning talking about it. And I'm here thinking, I don't understand half of what you just said. I don't know what I don't know what those words mean, but she looks really happy about it, so I'll just kind of nod and carry on.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I suppose.
I've got confidence that the listeners of the podcast will know fully all these skiing terms, but I've only ever done skiing at a dry ski slope whilst I was supervising a group of school kids. So yeah, I don't know much about it. But does it go on TV? Again, this might be a really stupid question.
No, it has been on TV, but it's not regularly on TV. I had a clip a few years ago with Ski Sunday, which was quite cool because they gave me a bit of a platform there to promote. but it's not on Eurosport, for instance. But we're hoping in the future it will make those kind of platforms. You can watch it often on German, Norwegian, sorry, my mind went blank then, and Swiss or French national TV, but it's less common in this country. But I'm hoping that will change in the future. We used to have a live stream, which I think, so when COVID happened, budgets were cut and the live stream stopped. But I think the live stream's coming back for most of the events next year, I think, at least for the World Champs and a few others. So it will be possible to watch the event and follow. But otherwise, if people are interested, they should head to Facebook, Instagram, and follow FIS Telemark. So that's FIS Telemark, and you'll get all the latest news and updates, pictures, videos from that platform.
And what about you? Are you on social media? Do you post things?
I do, yeah. If people want to follow me, it's Jazz Telemark, so JAZ, and then Telemark, and that's just me across everything. So like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, my website even. So yeah, turns out Jasmin Taylor is a common name, so I had to have like a different username on every platform, and I just, I'm one of those people that I can never remember my password when I have to log into things. I just couldn't. It was just doing my head in trying to remember all these logins. I thought, okay, I'm just going to take my nickname, take my sport, done, easy.
Yeah, that sounds sensible.
Yeah.
So, and what about if people want to actually have a go at Telemark?
So indoor snow domes in this country, so the likes of the Snow Centre in Hemel Hempstead, the Chill Factory in Manchester. So there are instructors available and equipment available. So should anybody want to try, they are the perfect places to, give it a go. And equally, if they want to give it a go on holiday, I think probably a bit of research beforehand, because not everywhere has access to equipment. So this is part of the it's probably the major barrier in getting started in this sport is tracking down equipment, and then also some people to do it with. But once you find equipment, there's normally a Telemark community. You just might have to do some digging if you're looking for people to do it with. But often if a resort has equipment, they also have instructors. They also have people you can go out with and ski with. Everybody knows everybody once you get in that community. It's like a family in Telemark skiing. So yeah, everyone knows everybody.
Yeah, I can imagine that once you're in as a Telemark skier, it's a nice community to be part of. If everybody's as enthusiastic as you, anyway.
Yeah, no, people that love it really love it, and it's amazing how far people will go to help you. It's it kind of does your heart proud. It's amazing, actually. So
fabulous. So you're training. You've got the World Championships. So what does your training involve?
So training, well, dry land training. So off the slopes would involve lots of roller skiing, which is like cross-country skiing but on wheels, which is not very common in this country. But when I talk to my Norwegian friends, they'll kind of say to me, well, of course people roller ski, how else would they get around? And I'm like, no, nobody does that in England. That's just, you look like you're mad. So yeah, I do a lot of looking mad, roller skiing around the roads in Ipswich. And then
do people know you now though as like a local oddity? Oh yeah, she's the girl that does that weird roller skiing.
Yeah, I've got a loop, and I often see the same people because you sort of go out at the same time on the same day. So yeah, you probably have got a name for myself with a couple of the loops.
Yeah.
But that aside, I do lots of weight training, so strength and power work in the gym, running, cycling, even trampolining, indoor skiing, climbing, slacklining, anything that just basically offsets your balance or makes you stronger or quicker or fitter, or any kind of physical challenge. I'd probably be probably have done it at some point at least. And then when I'm on snow, we'll free ski, we'll ski gates, which is when you practice going around the flags, jumping and skating. So plus the gym work and everything else. So
Yeah, it sounds exhausting. How similar is it to how a standard skier would prepare?
I would say summer preparation. So an alpine skier would probably have to be stronger than what we would have to be, but perhaps not as fit. So telemark skiers, we need to be strong and powerful, but also metabolically, so aerobically and anaerobically, we need to be very fit because we have to lunge rather than squat. So you can imagine it costs a bit more aerobic and anaerobic energy. And we have to skate as well. So again, we would do more skate training and more, I would say, aerobic and anaerobic work, but I'm just guessing. I think there's probably a lot of similarities though.
Yeah, you're being very, very kind and not sort of saying, oh yeah, normal skiing's just easy compared to what we do. But it sounds like it's much easier than what you have to do.
Well, I would say, so in alpine they have to resist much higher forces than what we would have to in telemark. So they do have to be very strong and very powerful and well balanced, and they'll ski on injected ice, for example. So it's really hard on the body. It really is. And in telemark we ski on snow because, well, it's kind of really difficult to telemark ski on ice firstly, but also we don't have the need to have it injected. They call it snow injecting. So they'll actually pump water into the slope when it's an alpine World Cup. So when the skiers ski through, the surface is so hard that no rut will build up beside the gate. So the snow stays fair and even and rut free for everybody. But in telemark, we don't have the same numbers. And we have slip crew, so we're able to keep the competitions fair without having to inject. Plus, there's a huge cost behind injecting water into the slopes anyway. So it's all, a much of a muchness. I would say that it's just a slightly different. So a recreational telemark skier versus a recreational alpine skier, the telemark skier is going to work much harder. But honestly, at the top end, one is not more difficult than the other. They're both difficult in different ways. And if you've spent your whole time training for alpine and then you try and do telemark, that's going to be really tough. And if you spent your whole time training for telemark and then you do alpine, that's going to be really tough. So it's, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
No, that's good. That's really interesting. I'm glad you explained a little bit what the injected snow was all about as well. But yeah, that was very diplomatic and yeah, really interesting. What about any disasters you've had? Have you had some epic falls or anything like that?
I have, yeah. I actually crashed at the last World Champs, so I'm hoping that I managed.
Maybe shouldn't have brought that up.
Yeah, I hope I manage to set my feet next time, honestly. But what have I done? I've broken my MCL, so my inner lateral knee ligament. That was ski jumping, and my elbow. I'd broken my elbow. That was years ago when I was skiing alpine. My nose, my thumb, that kind of thing. So yes, disasters do strike from time to time, but I'm afraid that is probably the worst part of sport is when you get injured, and yeah. Although you learn a lot, so you always have to try and find the positive, but it's pretty difficult when you're injured and it takes a long time to come back. That's not fun.
No. The thing you were saying about the injected snow, the fact that you don't do that in telemark, is that better for if you do fall?
Well, because it's injected, it's super consistent and smooth as a general rule of thumb. So gate 1 should feel a very similar texture surface to gate 23. Whereas when it's natural snow and it's not been manufactured and manicured within an inch of its life, you have bumps, you have ruts, the snow will take its own path. So that can potentially cause more hazards and trips or accidents, but at the same time, it's not as rock solid. It's a bit more forgiving, so again, I think it's, sort of equals itself out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that's been really interesting. I was going to ask you what you love about it, but you seem to love everything about it. Is there a particular thing that you like most of all?
Well, I don't love everything. We drive for hours and you're stuck in the back of a minivan. That's not brilliant. And sometimes you have to get up really early. That's not great either. And sometimes you're shattered. I don't know. It's not absolutely perfect. So just so people are aware. But what do I love most? Probably just feeling alive on your skis and alive and free, if you know what I mean. That's the best.
And you must get to ski in some incredible parts of the world.
Yeah, you do. And you meet amazing people and you go on adventures. And yeah, if I think of all the places I've been and cultures, people I've met, experiences I've had, just because I once decided I'd go skiing, well, my life would look very different without it. So yeah, it's quite cool if you think about it like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really nice to meet a real life sponsored GB athlete who says that sometimes she doesn't like having to get up too early. Like, that feels like it's just, yeah. Like inspirational on a level, and then also normal in a way that I understand.
Yeah, it's allowed, isn't it? You're allowed to just moan about it sometimes, I feel like. You have to pretend everything's perfect.
No, I think so. Well, I'll look out for watching you in your competitions in the spring, and I wish you all the best with your training, and yeah, hopefully you'll smash it and do really well and stay on your feet. And it's been really nice talking to you, and thank you for explaining and being so patient with some of my silly questions.
Oh, not at all. Thank you for having me, Hannah.
It was really nice to chat to you, and yeah, I know 100% more about Telemark Skiing than I did an hour ago, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah.
All right, take care, Jazz. All the best.
Yeah, you too.
I really enjoyed talking to Jazz, and I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of Footnotes, the Cicerone podcast. I'd love to know what you think, or if there's anything you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Please email me on live@cicerone.co.uk or leave a review on your podcast platform. You can follow or subscribe to the podcast to make sure you don't miss new episodes, or you can sign up to our newsletter for all our latest news, events and guidebooks. Visit cicerone.co.uk for further details. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, please come and join us on our social channels. We're on all the main ones as @Cicerone Press, and we also have a Facebook group, Cicerone Connect, where you can meet and chat to other outdoor enthusiasts. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.